Bob Downey, Don King, and Rick Gleason.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Very good. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for coming on with us. I sure appreciate you taking your time out of this busy schedule to help us discuss some important safety and health issues. So, Don, why don't you introduce our guest here?
Okay, I'm happy to introduce our guest today, who is on our call-in, a gentleman by the name of Robert E. Downey. And I use the E because it also is the name of his company called Red Consulting. Bob is out of California, located near Sacramento, and he's provided safety and loss control service for companies throughout California for more than 40 years. He's an appointed member of the Cal OSHA Advisory Committee, a committee which assists the Division of Occupational Safety and Health with outreach to the regulated community. Another thing Bob does also in his spare time is he's an instructor with the OSHA Training Institute at the University of California, San Diego, where he teaches construction, general industry classes. Bob is a CSP, which stands for Certified Safety Professional. He also holds a bachelor's degree from the University of San Francisco and a master's in public administration from Golden Gate University.
And Bob, thank you so much. By the way, we're coming to you from the Region 10 OSHA Training Center up here in Seattle. So we help out OSHA in Washington, Alaska, Oregon, and Idaho, and you help them out down in Region 9, sounds like, through the San Diego Center there.
Absolutely.
Hey, this is great. So we're very interested today to hear from you from the standpoint of usually when federal OSHA goes out on an inspection, there might be civil penalties, it might be general, serious, repeat, maybe even willful, but generally it doesn't rise to the occasion of a criminal violation. They may refer it to the Justice Department, but there's not a lot of cases where they've successfully prosecuted that. And they're kind of leaving the state OSHAs on their own, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about what California has done from that criminal sanction standpoint.
Very good. California is often in the forefront of activity in the safety field. Cal OSHA has been in existence, as you guys know, since 1973, but our roots for safety go back as far as 1911, when Governor Hiram Johnson, then governor at the time, established the first workers' comp programs. And since then, a lot of activities safety-wise have focused on manufacturing and construction in the state of California. We were the first organization to have a requirement for injury and illness prevention programs, which the federal government is kind of looking at as well. We have heat illness programs, we have silica programs, and in the wisdom of our state legislature, we also added to the labor code a change that says if an employer violates an OSHA standard which leads to the death or serious injury of an employee, that employer can be prosecuted criminally. In the case of a death, it may mean a manslaughter charge brought against the employer, and in the case of a serious injury, it would be a criminal violation of a section of the California Labor Code.
Okay, very good. So, Bob, maybe what you could share with us, if you don't mind, is a couple of cases in point that have gone to the criminal justice level and what the outcome was of those.
Very good, Don. Let me first answer the question, or direct your listeners to the fact that the information we're going to talk about is a matter of public record, and the Department of Industrial Relations and the Division of Occupational Safety and Health is required to send a report to the legislature in April of each year, identifying the cases that have been inspected or evaluated by the Bureau of Investigation as part of DOSH, and those that have been referred for prosecution to local district attorneys. A couple of cases that have been significant over the years are one called Northern Lights Mechanical out of Chico, California, and the second one is a case called Hajiar Faria Farms out of Dustine in, I believe, Stanislaus County of California. The Northern Lights Mechanical case is significant in that the employer of that, or the owner of that company, who violated numerous confined space standards, which led to the death of one employee and serious burns over a significant portion of the body of another. That employer, that owner, was prosecuted by the district attorney out of Redding, California, and ended up spending 18 months in a California state prison as a result of that conviction. He was also required to pay a significant fine and cover the costs of the OSHA investigation and subsequent assistance in prosecution. And he paid restitution to the families as well. I think that's the most significant of the cases. Many of the cases that are prosecuted do end up with significant penalties and restitution, but frequently the result is community service on the part of those individuals who were prosecuted and found guilty. In the Hajiar Faria Farms case, which was quite interesting to all of us, it certainly seemed as if the employer in this case should certainly have been found guilty by a jury of his peers. That was not the case. But to describe the case briefly, at Hajiar Faria Farms, and this happened a number of years ago, two employees of the farm, which is a dairy operation in a town called Dustine, California, entered a manure pit valve house. Both employees were overcome apparently with methane gas. They fell from into the manure at the bottom and they drowned. Because the case involved two fatalities, the owner of that company, after investigation by the Bureau of Investigation at Cal OSHA, was prosecuted by the district attorney in Stanislaus County. He was assisted, the DA was assisted by a representative of the California District Attorneys Association, and that individual's costs are paid for by the District Attorneys Association. The idea is to provide smaller counties with assistance in prosecuting quite complicated cases. The owner of the company was the safety officer and was a volunteer firefighter. Evidence in the case showed that the injury prevention program said, we're going to provide for confined space entry. We're going to train our employees. We're going to provide them with the tools and equipment that they need, and nobody enters a confined space unless they have been properly trained and been provided with the proper equipment. If these men enter the space without that, absolutely. Did they, as a result? Yes. Now, you might say, gee, did the owner have knowledge that these guys were going in, or that there were confined space issues? Sadly, the answer is yes. The owner of the company was also a volunteer firefighter, and he was space rescue. It's interesting to note that he got 100% on his examination after training. He was also the guy who wrote the injury prevention program. And yet none of the things that should have been provided to his employees were provided. Now, based on the brief information that I provided, you would think that the owner of this company probably would have been found guilty by a jury of his peers. I don't know what your opinion is, Don. You've been around for a long time, as have I. It certainly seems like the evidence was pretty overwhelming against him. But anytime you go to a jury trial, personal, individual opinion comes to play. And in this particular case, the jury said, you know what? While it is sad that the individuals died, we do not believe that the farmers in our arena have been provided enough information by OSHA to assure that they were aware of the hazards and would deal with them effectively. And so in the Aguiar Faria Farms case, the owner was found not guilty of the charges of manslaughter for these two individuals. So it is an unusual case. In one, the owner goes to jail. In the other, the individual is exonerated. And, you know, all I can say is go figure. But in both cases, OSHA prevailed upon district attorneys to prosecute those cases and to identify that there are responsibilities among employers to follow the rules, to assure employees are safe, and if you don't, there are consequences.
Boy, those are great cases, Bob, and particularly both dealing with confined spaces. And it's interesting how the burden of proof is slightly different. Like for a civil OSHA penalty or any third-party, you know, penalty, it's more probable than not, maybe 51%. But in these criminal trials, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, like 99%. So apparently the jury verdict was that there needs to be more training, not just on employers' parts, but on OSHA and state OSHA as well. So hopefully that's something that's being worked on all these agencies.
Bob, a quick question was, if the individual was exonerated, were there still penalties assessed and fines?
Well, certainly the civil penalties for violation of the confined space standards would still have held against Aguiar Faria Farms under the OSHA requirements, and in that case, serious violations and civil penalties would certainly have been assessed. The issue with prosecutions under the labor code take these issues out of the OSHA compliance arena and put them in the arena of criminal prosecutions under the district attorneys. So you have two separate elements, civil penalties on the one side and criminal on the other, and they are handled through separate channels.
I see. Okay. Very good.
Got it. Wow. Bob, this is two excellent examples. It's interesting because I don't see this happening in any or many other states. We have never had a conviction in the state of Washington in the last 100 years for any worker dying on the job. And so it might be something that Washington would start looking at what California is doing to see if that might be a model. But I'm not aware of many other states really doing this. Are you?
I'm not aware of other states. My primary focus has been in California. But I am aware that long before the change to the labor code, there were prosecutions for manslaughter in cases in California where employees died as a result of perhaps the word would be negligence on the part of the employer or a deliberate direction to an employee to enter a hazardous location where clearly the standards of construction safety were violated, which led to a death of an individual. So it is a surprise to me, Rick, that other states prosecution authority, or the information is not open to the public. As I mentioned earlier, California's information and the results of prosecution are a public record published each year by the Bureau of Investigation and sent to the California legislature.
Got it. Wow. Well, I very much appreciate that. And so this is something that's not going to end. I mean, there still are workers dying on the job in the United States of America, in the state of California, and the state of Washington. And so if it gets more awareness, more training, more knowledge, more accident prevention, then everyone's going to win from that standpoint.
Something else I should mention, Rick, in terms of impact on the employer, in most instances when a settlement is reached, whether it means someone going to jail or monetary penalties, frequently part of those monetary penalties go into the California District Attorney's Training Fund. And some of those funds go to help the circuit rider, that is the prosecutor who helps a smaller district attorney county. The other goes into providing training for employers that can help them recognize hazards and deal with them effectively. So, it's not all funding that goes to continuing prosecution. It's funding that also goes to education and awareness on the part of companies throughout the state of California.
Very good. That's good, Bob. I was thinking of that case that happened down in California when you and I were together on that GCA committee, and those gentlemen had been killed from that gas explosion on that when they hit that line, and all those people died, and they were trying to change the law.
Okay, the 2004 case in Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Resulted in a significant change to Cal OSHA regulations that differ from federal OSHA standards. So in the past, and most states have the same basic rules, the subpart P requirement in construction standards, 29 CFR 1926. Sorry, I'm showing off that safety talk, right? But the subpart P standards for excavation were pretty much the same throughout the United States. But when an employer, operator of an excavator, hit a high pressure gasoline line and sprayed volatile gasoline into an excavation where men were welding pipe,
yeah,
the subsequent explosion killed 5 people, 5 men working in that pipe. And so as a result of that, and I honestly don't know what prosecutions occurred after that, but as a result of that case, California changed its rules so that whenever we work in proximity to a high priority line, and that includes lines like a gas line or a sewer line or a water line or a high voltage electrical line, if we work within 10 feet of those, we are obligated to have a meeting with the owner of that utility to assure we don't strike those lines. Now that's over and above the issue of prosecutions for serious violations of the OSHA standard, deliberate violations. That one was not a deliberate violation. It was a mistake in the process of work that led to that condition. I certainly wish it had not happened, but through a lot of things aligning at one time, those conditions were right for an accident to occur, and they did. So a lot of attention was paid to that. Many people got involved in the discussions with Cal OSHA to change the Cal OSHA regulations to reflect greater protection for employees who must work in trenches and excavation near any high priority line.
Well, Bob, we just want to thank you so much. We've been keeping you about 20 minutes here, and those 3 cases have just been so informative. So we appreciate having you on very much. Don, any last thoughts for Bob
Just
there?
keep on doing what you're doing, and we will be in touch with you as time goes by.
Very good. I'm happy to help you guys out, and I hope the information can be well used by those who will listen to your program. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, thank you,
Thanks,
Bob.
Bob.
Take care.
Right,
So,
take care.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
well, hey, we're going to wrap up our heartbeat of worker health and safety in just a moment. But for right now, wanted to just see if maybe, Don, you got any last words of wisdom, thoughts, safety quote of the day, or anything?
Well, usually we always have a quote of the day, and I think a good one that I heard the other day or read from a very, very fine human being by the name of Ted Williams, who was a Hall of Fame baseball player that we all know and have heard of, most people have, had a saying that a person never stands so tall as when they stoop to help someone. And I thought that was good to kind of wrap up where we are, and what we talk about all the time is do not hesitate to help someone who may be in need of your help out on those work sites.
Well, Don, I appreciate that so much. And what we said last time, too, along those lines was, watch out for each other out there as if they were your own flesh and blood, and don't put yourself in the line of fire. So those are our thoughts as we head out from today's podcast. This has been Rick Gleason and Don King saying thank you so much for listening.
And
Take
aloha.
care. Aloha. All right.
I was young and feisty, never did things by the book. Just let me get my toolbox and I'll take myself a look. I climbed up on the dozer with my mechanic's pride. Said, you can keep it running, friend, while I poke around inside. Shake hands with danger, meet a guy you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety, now they call me Three-Finger Joe. Though I learned a lesson, I forgot it soon enough. The nicks and burns and scratches showed the young ones I was tough. Till another morning, I was grinding on some steel. My other hand got careless and fed my skin into the wheel. Shake hands with danger, step right up and say hello. Grinding wheels and metal, I what made me Three-Finger Joe. I've seen mechanics burning, and I've seen them take a fall just to save themselves a minute, and I've seen them lose it all. I've watched them courting trouble, seen them take a chance and lose. They get careless for a moment, spend a lifetime with the blues. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger. Shake hands with danger and some friends I used to know. Compared to them, I'm lucky to be just Three-Finger Joe.